Do you want to know why this banknote from what is now the Democratic Republic of the Congo has this giant hole in it? Well, keep watching this video, because today we talk about money. Hello Internet, welcome to Lex Universe. So, do you like money? Well, I'm not gonna give you any, but we will talk about money today, well, more specifically about world currencies from every possible aspect that I could think of. Because, well, when you're traveling, I think that the currency exchange is one of the first things that you check before you enter any country. So do you want to know what are the most useful or the most valuable currencies around the world, which are the most unique ones, and which are my personal favorite? Let's find out. So we already discussed this in one of my previous videos. There are 193 or 95 countries around the world, but there is only 180 currencies. Why? Well, do you want to hear the short or the long answer? Well, you can see the watch time of this video, it will be a long answer. Sometimes the country uses several currencies, and sometimes several countries use one currency. Now, which currency do you think is the official currency of most countries? Well, that would be euro. It's a legal tender in 26 countries that, with some exceptions, are called the Eurozone. This is probably the most important and the largest and the most integrated so-called monetary union, and since 2002 the euro has replaced several former European currencies. Speaking of monetary unions, there are some other in the world, and we will see some of them here in this list. But before we get to them, let's get to number 2 on our list, and that's the US dollar. Of course, unlike the euro, while the American dollar is used as the legal tender in 14 countries, this is not the case of the monetary union. Most of these countries use the American dollar because it's like their only option. They don't want to introduce their own currency, and the American dollar is actually one of the best international currencies. Now, the third entry on our list is the East Caribbean dollar, which is used in 8 countries, and most of them, well, basically all of them, are in the Caribbean. Not much to say about that. Let's move on to 2 currencies that are called the CFA franc. They are used in Africa. I already spoke about it a little bit about my friends about the French geography. If you haven't seen it, go check it out in the upper right corner. I think it's a very interesting video. But anyway, there are 2 versions of this currency. It's the West African CFA franc and the Central African CFA franc. The first one used in 8 countries, the second one in 6 countries, and these are another examples of monetary unions. That's actually kind of useful because if you're coming to Western Africa, you only have to worry about 2 currencies at all, plus the Guinean franc, but I'll get to that later because it's actually quite unique. The 6th on our list is the Australian dollar, which is used in 4 countries, especially the affiliated countries and island nations in the Pacific, and of course in Australia. The 7th on our list, New Zealand dollar, used also in 4 countries, and let's wrap it up with the South African rand, which is used in 4 countries. The situation about the South African rand is actually kind of interesting because it's actually pegged to 3 other South African currencies in Botswana, Namibia and Lesotho, and these 4 currencies are exchanged in the rate of 1:1. You can find something similar in Singapore, when the Singapore dollar is exchanged in the rate 1:1 to Brunei dollar. Moving on from the actual currencies, which are actually the most used name of the monetary units. As you can see on this map, we have dozens of names of the monetary units around the world. But some of them are used in more than one country, and that's what will be discussing today. What is the most used monetary unit name in the world? Well, actually, there is a tie. First of all, there is a dollar. We all know it. We all know the US dollar, the Australian, New Zealand dollar, I already mentioned them. Then, for example, the Cook Islands dollar. I'll talk about it also later. Not only that, we have also some dollars that you possibly wouldn't expect. The Zimbabwe dollar. Basically, a lot of countries that are somehow affiliated with the United States or have adopted their currency name quite lately, they use the name dollar. The other monetary unit name that also is used in 10 currencies is the franc. This would have won some 20 years ago when we had the French franc, but it was replaced by the euro. But many countries that have somehow been affiliated with France in the past now use franc as their currency. You can name the Swiss franc in Europe, or as I've already mentioned, the CFA francs in Africa. We also have the Polynesian franc, which is used in the French Polynesia and some other French Polynesian territories. Again, if you're interested in France and how weird it is, go watch my video. But that's the franc. Moving on to a completely different part of the world, we have a dinar, which is mostly used in some Arabic countries. We can mention the Jordanian dinar, and you can again see the list of all the dinars on the screen. Moving on to the next entries on the list, there are again two, so let's start with one of them, and that's the peso. This is usually used in Spanish-influenced countries, especially in the Caribbean and the South American continent, and also you can find a peso in the Philippines, because the Philippines are strange. They're kind of like a mixture of Asian and Spanish, and kind of like it. But you know, they also use a peso. Well, then we have another currency that is used in 8 countries, and that's the rupee. Although pronounced differently in some countries, like on the Maldives they call it rufiya and so on, really dependent on the language. This is not only used in India, it is a currency of many southern and southeastern Asian countries like Indonesia, like I said, Maldives, Sri Lanka and so on. Moving on, and this one is weird, is the pound. Like, we know that there is the British pound, and many of you possibly know that there is the Egyptian pound, but for some reason a lira is also included in this list, because apparently the pound in some countries like in Lebanon or Syria is called lira in Arabic. So by expansion, the Turkish lira is also included in these 7 countries that use the pound. So another currency that is used in 5 countries is the rial. Well, they are used in 5 countries like Oman, Yemen or Iran. There's also the currency called rial with Y, and that's used in Saudi Arabia, for example. It's a different name, so I don't count them together, although I counted pound and lira together, so you know. Let's count them together. It's 8 of them, and they should be 3rd in this list. But, well, who cares? But leaving the most popular currencies or currency names, let's move to some more unique ones. And let's start with already mentioned Cook Island dollars. There are 2 things that are actually quite interesting about this currency. First of all, they have a $3 banknote, which is not very usual. And by the way, it displays a woman riding a shark, which I think it's adorable. Also, they have a triangular coin of $2. That's really insane. If you are a tourist there, it's a great collectible, and that's one of the reasons why I probably want to visit it. Well, speaking of Australian dollar, there are also some of the most unique banknotes around the world. They are actually waterproofed and made from the polymer, and they were the first to do this. Many countries, like for example Canada, followed them quite quickly, but they were the first to introduce non-paper banknotes, and I think they deserve our thanks for that. Not to mention that the Australian dollar is very difficult to counterfeit if you have such desires. Speaking of the Canadian dollars, they're also kind of unique. The newest set of banknotes is actually vertical. Not many banknotes have it, but I can show you, for example, old Croatian dinars that are no longer valid, but they also had their obverse side this beautifully vertical, which I think is great. Well, moving on, let's talk about the Niue dollar. This is something that almost doesn't exist. Again, the New Zealand dollar is used on the island of Niue, but they introduced their own coins, and the coolest thing about them is that their inverse side has motifs of Star Wars. So if you are a Star Wars collector or coin collector, this is a must. They are used as the legal tender in the island, but honestly they are a lot more valuable than their real value, so well, I wouldn't pay with them. Now the prize for the winner of the weirdest name of the currency is the Bhutan Gultrum. See, I had problems even to pronounce it, but well, the banknotes are actually quite beautiful and the name is so weird that I had to put it on this list. But moving to my own personal favorite is the Cambodian Riel. See it? Well, let me show you a better video of it. The amazing thing about the Cambodian Riel is it has such a low value and it's totally inexchangeable outside of Cambodia. Nobody accepts it anywhere, and even in Cambodia, almost nobody uses it to pay. So they use American dollars unofficially, and sometimes when you pay with the dollar, they will return you money in the Riel. And as you can see, the banknotes are really beautiful. Just love the Cambodian writing system and the colors and the architecture. Really nice. So that's my favorite. But let's talk about some other extremes. What is the largest banknote in circulation in size? Well, that would be the 600 Malaysian ringgit banknote that is used in, well, Malaysia. Speaking of large, what is the largest denomination of a banknote? Well, here we have to go to Zimbabwe, and I will cheat a little bit because the currency is no longer in use, but it's so fucking weird that I just had to mention it. And it's the 100 trillion banknote of the Zimbabwe dollar. There was a very strong hyperinflation in Zimbabwe in the recent years, like 10 years ago, and their currency really plummeted and probably wasn't even worth the paper that was printed on. This cost some $300. Like, get $300 and you are multi-trillionaire. Isn't that beautiful? But what is the most valued banknote in the world? Well, we'll have to go to Asia again, and in this case is the banknote of 10,000 Singapore dollars, which equals roughly some $7,500. Imagine a piece of paper, 7,500 US dollars. I wish I had it right now, but I don't. You know, these people probably really overcompensated. So, what was the smallest banknote in the world? I was trying to find the current smallest banknote. I think there are some runner-ups. I'm not sure which one is the smallest. I couldn't find the answer, but I think it must be something around 10 centimeters in length, and we can talk about the Zhao banknote of the Chinese renminbi. I've been trying to test it with the banknotes that I own, so yeah, I actually did spend like 20 minutes sitting on my desk and measuring the banknotes, but this one was smallest with some 10.5 centimeters in length, and it's 1 Ukrainian hryvnia. I suppose that the Chinese banknote is even smaller, but strangely enough, the Guinness Book of Records doesn't say this. What it does say is the smallest banknote in history, and that's the 10 bani banknote from Romania from 1917, which did measure 44 to 33 millimeters. So imagine it's like, I would really lose it quite. Now, leaving the banknotes, what are some of the strongest currencies around the world? Well, we have to go to the Middle East, because there we have the Kuwaiti dinar, which is worth $3.3. And quite far away second is the Bahraini dollar, which is $2.65. And on the third place, I guess we would have to have the Omani rial, which is $2.60. The fourth on our list is also in the Middle East, and that's the Jordanian dinar, which is some $1.40. And on the fifth place, finally moving from the Middle East, is the British pound, which is some $1.3. Well, that were some strongest currencies, but which are the cheapest ones? Well, we will have to mention the Zimbabwe dollar again, but like I said, it's not used anymore. So, what are the cheapest currencies in the world today, 2022? Well, the overall cheapest currency in the world is the Iranian rial, which is now exchanged for some 40,000 American dollars. But That's the official rate, and you will never get that. So on the black market you will buy $1 for, let's say, some 110,000 reals. That's unreal. The next on our list would be the Vietnamese dong. In this case, you will exchange $1 for some 23,000 dongs. Moving on to Indonesia, the US dollar is worth some 40,000 Indonesian rupees, Guinean franc, some 9,000 per dollar. And so let's wrap this list with Lao kip, $1 per 8,500 kips. Funny, right? But speaking of all these obscure currencies, I promised you to explain to you what was the deal with this headless currency. Well, some time ago in Zaire, which today is called the Democratic Republic of the Congo, they had a dictator and they overthrew him. But he was on all the banknotes, and they had two options: either print new banknotes or just somehow get rid of it. So they just took a stack of these banknotes, made a hole in them, and it was a legal tender. How funny, right? But returning back to the world stage, what are some of the most used currencies in the world, meaning in the international trade? Well, in this case, the first place must come to the American dollar, but really close second is euro, which is gaining momentum and probably will supersede dollars in the coming future. Well, the other currencies that I'll mention here are used for international trade, but they are really far behind, and that's the Japanese yen, the British pound, the Australian dollar and the Canadian dollar. So, how did you like it? I mean, what are your favorite currencies? What do you do with all the leftover money from your travels? Because I kind of collect it and I put it on my wall and I really enjoy it. I took it out of my collage just for this video so that I could show you. And I mean, there are so many interesting currencies, like this one, for example. Can you see? It's like the ringgit. You can see through it. Love it. Many new currencies are also made of the polymer. They are completely waterproof, which is really useful, you know. And it's one of the coolest things about traveling. I mean, like, everything about traveling is cool, but I kind of like this. A lot of memories in this. So I hope you found this video interesting. If you did, please give me a like. Subscribe to my channel. That would help me a great deal. I'm trying to get to 4,000 and, well, I'm not there yet. If you want to support me, you can become the member of my channel to get some free access to my videos and some additional content. You can check out other videos from this series or from my channel. I have quite a lot of geography and traveling videos there, so if you're interested in that, go watch it. Check out my other social media, Facebook, Instagram, and see you next time. Bye.